The Costume by Soulful Sorrow. On November 24th, 2005, there was a disturbing occurrence at Disneyland. It was your average day in the wonder-filled amusement park. Families scattered throughout the park, the excited squeals of children rang out over the crowds, and the Disney mascots wandered around and posed for pictures. Suddenly, the magic of Disneyland was shattered as a frantic call ran out over the crowd. "James, where are you? James! James!" A mother was running around Main Street calling out her son's name. Other mothers pulled their children closer to them as the woman ran around, her voice quickly growing from panic to horrible desperation. Tears began to roll down her face. Park security showed up and looked around, and an announcement was made over the intercom to look for James with a description of what he was wearing. The boy wasn't found and nobody volunteered any information. It was only a few hours later that something else happened. "Ronnie! Ronnie! Where's Ronnie?" The same horrible scenario all over again. A mother ran around shouting for her son and asking people if they had seen him. She ran around with the boy's father chasing after her, begging her to calm down and trying to reassure her by telling her that they would find him. Another announcement was made about Ronnie. Nobody came forward with any information. After 2 kids had gone missing on the same day, something had to be done. Security in the park was tightened, placing security guards near almost every attraction in the park. Footage from surveillance cameras were reviewed, but nothing more than people buying sunglasses or Mickey Mouse walking around with a few kids was seen. There was one security guard who reported that a kid had told him that he had seen Ronnie. The guard said he was standing outside one of the rides when a little boy walked up to him. The boy looked to be no more than 6 or 7 years old. "I know what happened to the boy," he told the guard. "You do?" The guard didn't know what to think. The boy probably hadn't seen anything important, but it would probably be worth a listen. The boy nodded. "I saw Ronnie. He was with Mickey Mouse. But Mickey was being mean to him. Mickey took Ronnie." "Mickey?" the guard said. He was confused. How could a child think that Mickey Mouse was taking kids? The guard just assumed it was a pedophile or a kidnapper or something, and knew that the kids would be found. Where did Mickey Mouse come into this? Yes, Mickey Mouse ate Ronnie. He ate that other boy too. The guard was speechless. He was still trying to think of what to say when the boy's parents hurried over and pulled the child away, scolding him to be careful around the park and thanking the security guard for finding their son. As fast as the boy had appeared, he was gone. The security guard knew he shouldn't have been too bothered by what the kid said about Mickey, yet he couldn't seem to push the thought out of his mind. The security guard waited until his shift was over, but instead of leaving, he went to the security room where a bunch of monitors were displaying the video from the surveillance cameras. He asked the people working there to review the footage and look for Mickey Mouse around the time James had gone missing. The tapes were rewound and scenes from earlier that day were replayed on the monitors. The guard's eyes darted from one screen until the next, until he finally noticed something. He told the men to pause the video. Everyone in the room focused on the monitor. Even though there wasn't much to see, Mickey Mouse and a small child were seen walking towards a maintenance door in what looked to be Tomorrowland near Space Mountain. The child seemed confused, maybe a little scared. The guard decided to check it out before he went home. He couldn't forget that one boy's solemn expression, or what he had said about Mickey Mouse. Just in case something happened, he took his radio and keys. Then the guard walked over to Tomorrowland, and he found himself by Space Mountain. There was a rusty maintenance room door off to the side of the attraction, nearly hidden behind a few trash cans. He pushed the cans to one side and tried to open the door, only to find that it was locked. The guard pulled out his keys and tried to find one to open it. Finally, he managed to get the door open with a maintenance key. Inside, it turned out that the maintenance room led into an old maintenance tunnel. The lights were off and the guard tried to switch on the light near the door, but the room remained in darkness. The vague echo of a rat scampering across the room was heard, but the guard couldn't see it. He hadn't thought to bring his flashlight. Suddenly, the guard gasped. His hand flew up to his nose. God, what was that horrible smell? It smelled like poisoned mushrooms or rotting meat infected with maggots. He tried not to breathe, but the smell was already in his nose. The guard tried not to let it sink onto his tongue as he stepped further into the room. The only source of light was the door, which he had left wide open. He hoped the smell didn't get out so the guests could smell it. The guard assumed that the maintenance tunnel went under Space Mountain, but in front of him was a dark, inky blackness. He squinted and had to hope that his eyes would adjust for the dark. For now, he could only make out vague silhouettes and shapes. He began to walk into the tunnel, visibility decreasing with every footstep. His footsteps echoed off the walls, seeming to pound on the concrete floor. The guard suddenly stopped walking, a few feet away from a brick wall. He assumed he had just come to a turn. He looked left and saw nothing. He looked right and saw a small, flickering light. He decided to go towards the light and kept his hand on the wall so he wouldn't get lost. The smell seemed to be getting worse. After a short walk, he reached the light, which was actually coming from a small crack underneath a metal door. The door was rusted and bent, and the guard knew it wouldn't take much to rip it off its hinges. The security guard found the doorknob and gently opened it. The door squealed as it came open. The smell seemed to explode out of the room, eager to get out. The guard tried not to violently puke at the horrible aroma and looked inside the brightly lit room. His eyes needed a moment to adjust to the sudden light, and when they did, the guard gasped in horror. Children littered the room, almost all the ones that had gone missing in the park over the years. He recognized James and Ronnie, lying on the floor with the others. No, they weren't just lying on the ground. The guard realized the children were dead. He gasped again and took a step back. Some of the children had arms or legs missing. Each one had their eyes removed, leaving bloody holes in their faces instead. Thick slices were over some of the bodies, as though something with claws had got to them. Something in the room moved. The guard tore his eye away from the children on the floor, and he saw the most unreal thing staring at him. A giant Mickey Mouse stood in the room, observing the guard with wide eyes. Something was inside the Mickey Mouse costume, and everything came together in the guard's mind. It would be easy for Mickey Mouse to lure kids away and not draw any attention. But now, that same Mickey Mouse was staring at him. They had a silent staring contest for quite a few moments. But then the costume's arm came up and pointed at the guard. A thick screech came from inside the mascot's head and the mouse moved toward the guard. The guard turned and ran for his life. The heavy footsteps of the costume behind him alerted him to the fact that Mickey Mouse was chasing him down the long, dark tunnel. The guard ran faster than he had ever run before, just knowing that death was directly behind him. Close enough to stab him with a claw, close enough to wrap its arms around him and drag him back into the room. And then the guard was outside. He stopped running and blinked a few times to clear his vision. The sunlight felt warm and reassuring to him. But when he looked back in the maintenance room, he knew that the sunlight had stopped the thing in the costume. Maybe that's why it wore the costume, to protect itself from the sunlight. But it wouldn't chase the guard anymore. He'd gotten away. The security guard reached back in the maintenance room, groping for the doorknob so he could slam the door shut and make sure the thing didn't get out. He expected to feel Mickey's hand seize him and pull him in, but nothing happened. The guard slammed the door shut and sighed deeply. He was safe. The guard ran halfway across the park to the security room. He told the other security guards that he had found something in the maintenance room. He told them to follow and take their guns, which were only used in a dire emergency. When asked to explain, he said that he had found the kids, before he turned and began hurrying back to the maintenance tunnel. A large group of guards entered the tunnel and found the kids, all scattered on the cold concrete floor. A blood-covered Mickey Mouse costume also lay on the ground in the room, right next to all the kids, as though saying he'd always be there. The security guard only took one look back into the dark tunnel while the others were still looking at the kids. He was the only one to see the small pair of dark eyes in the tunnel, blink once, before vanishing into the darkness. Whatever it wasn't human. The guard turned back into the room and saw blood smeared all over the wall. The guards were silent, all eyes fixated on the blood. It had been used to spell out a simple, 3-word message on the wall. Still among you. The maintenance tunnel was destroyed, the door buried behind a concrete wall. Space Mountain was closed for a few days while it was searched, and the security guard quit. But, to this day, children still squeal in excitement and hurry over whenever they see Mickey Mouse. Photo albums are being filled with pictures of the iconic mouse, and nobody knows for sure who's under that costume, or what's under it. I'd like to say thank you to my $10 and above patrons, Chaos X and Official Jerboa. If you'd like to become a patron, you can go to those links in the description and go from there. Thank you.